Picture this. A rich Chinese man dripping in Gucci lands in Singapore. He's not here for culture, not for Marina Bay Sands, not even for chili crab. No, he's here for what Singapore secretly specializes in, selling paradise to rich but dumb people. Forget timeshares in Florida or fake retirement villas in Thailand. Singapore has perfected the art of packaging luxury exclusivity for the exact people who will never question the bill. You see, Singapore is not just a financial hub, it's a spiritual Disneyland for wealthy mainlanders who can't speak English, but still want to feel like they've made it in global society. The recipe is genius. Slap marble floors on a shoebox apartment, give it a name like Sky Royal Emerald Suites, then let some sales agent whisper, only for VIPs like you. Boom. Another $1 million check signed before the guy even finds out the pool closes at 7 p.m. And don't think this is some hidden scam. No, no, Singapore is proud of this. They built the entire nation on the idea that the richer you are, the dumber you'll act. Want to buy a 99-year lease for an apartment smaller than your grandmother's kitchen? Congratulations, you're now a global elite. Want to park your Lamborghini in the world's most expensive lot while living in a condo that feels like a shoebox? Welcome, sir. Singapore has been waiting for you. But here's the kicker. Singapore doesn't need to scam the poor. They know the poor already can't afford anything. The real money is in selling dreams to rich idiots, especially those who think speaking Mandarin in Marina Bay Sands equals international success. So today, let's peel back the glossy brochure. Forget Lion City. Forget Asia's Switzerland. Let's talk about Singapore, the true paradise for rich but dumb Chinese. Let's start with the obvious. Singapore doesn't sell land. Land in Singapore is like a Louis Vuitton bag in China. Never enough of it. Always overpriced and guaranteed to make you look important if you own one. But here's the plot twist. You're not buying land at all. You're renting it from the government for 99 years. Yes, 99. Which means your great-grandkids will one day cry when they discover grandpa's investment magically belongs back to the state. It's like Monopoly, except the banker always wins, and the banker is Singapore Inc. And who falls for this trick the fastest? Mainland Chinese investors. These are people who grew up believing that if something is expensive, it must be prestigious. Put gold letters on the building, light up the lobby with a chandelier so bright it blinds you, and suddenly an overpriced one-bedroom in Jurong becomes prime property. They don't even ask basic questions like, wait, so after 99 years, it's gone? No, no. They nod politely, sign the papers, and brag about their new asset at hot pot dinner. Meanwhile, Singaporeans just sit back and laugh. The locals know HDB flats are glorified Lego blocks, but when a mainlander calls it exclusive housing, suddenly that block looks like Beverly Hills. Singapore doesn't even have to lie. They just let the buyers tell themselves fairy tales. And the irony? These rich Chinese wouldn't survive one day in actual real estate negotiations in the US, Canada, or Australia, where English contracts, zoning laws, and endless fine print would expose them instantly. But in Singapore, the system is built for them. It's in Mandarin, it's polished, and it's designed to feed their egos. So yes, Chapter 1 proves the genius of Singapore. You're not buying a home, you're buying an illusion. And for rich but dumb Chinese, an illusion is often worth more than reality. In most countries, luxury is a lifestyle choice. In Singapore, luxury is a national strategy. The government, developers, and retailers all know the same truth. Rich Chinese don't want comfort, they want status. So instead of building livable homes, Singapore builds Instagram backdrops disguised as property. Take condos, for example. You're not paying for space, you're paying for the illusion of exclusive membership. The apartment is the size of a walk-in closet, but the brochure shows a rooftop infinity pool and a gym that looks like the set of a Marvel movie. What they don't tell you? The pool is usually filled with screaming children, and the gym's treadmill hasn't worked since 2019. But by the time reality sets in, the contract is already signed, and the agent is popping champagne. Then there are the private clubs. In China, being in a club means karaoke, overpriced whiskey, and maybe a shady backroom. In Singapore, clubs mean you get to pay $250,000 just for the privilege of saying you belong to something. The Straits Times will call it networking with the elite, But in reality, it's just you, another 50 mainlanders, and one lonely white guy pretending he's not broke. And don't get me started on the cars. Singapore is the only place on earth where buying a Ferrari makes you look like a fool instead of a king. Why? Because that Ferrari comes with a certificate of entitlement, a glorified government permission slip that costs more than the car itself. Only a dumb rich person looks at a $500,000 slip of paper and says, yes, this is a smart investment. Guess who says it the loudest? Yep, the mainlanders revving their engines on Orchard Road like it's Monaco, while the locals secretly laugh and call it the parade of suckers. Here's the brilliance. Singapore never lies. They never hide the fine print. The rules are crystal clear. 99-year leases, $1 million certificates, absurd membership fees. But for the rich Chinese ego, the price proves it's valuable. That's the scam, not hiding the truth, but making the truth so expensive it feels like prestige. So when you see a Lamborghini stuck in a traffic jam next to a grub scooter, don't feel bad for the driver. That's not a victim. That's the textbook definition of a rich but dumb investor, proudly scammed by the most efficient machine in Asia, Singapore's luxury industry. Why is it always the rich mainlanders getting milked? Simple, because Singapore knows their weaknesses better than they know themselves. These are people who grew up in a system where wealth is new, fragile, and constantly under threat. They don't have the centuries-old aristocracy of Europe or the dynasties of Japan. They just have money, and money without pedigree breeds insecurity. And Singapore? Oh, Singapore is a master therapist for insecure millionaires. It whispers, don't worry, you may not speak English, you may not be respected in Australia, you may be treated like a walking ATM in Canada, but here, in Singapore, you are royalty. The formula is brilliant. Mainland Chinese walk into Singapore feeling judged by the West. They can't order coffee in New York without stuttering. They're laughed at in Sydney for bad grammar. And in Tokyo, people assume they're low-class tourists. But in Singapore, suddenly Mandarin is spoken everywhere. Waiters bow politely, and sales agents say, only for special customers like you. That validation is worth more than any property brochure. Then comes the ego trap. Singapore's skyline screams global elite, but it's a curated stage set. Buy a penthouse at Marina Bay and suddenly you can post selfies with the same view as hedge fund managers, diplomats, and billionaires. Never mind that you're living paycheck to paycheck after buying it. The WeChat group chat only sees the view, not the mortgage. And here's the real punchline. Singapore doesn't just sell apartments or memberships, it sells identity. For a rich Chinese man insecure about being mocked abroad, Singapore offers the fantasy that he has finally arrived. He may not belong in London, Paris, or New York, but in Singapore, he can pretend he does. It's not about space, or food, or even quality of life. It's about ego insurance. Singapore figured out that wealthy Chinese don't want comfort. They want proof they're not second-class citizens. And what better way to prove it than dropping millions on a shoebox apartment that expires in 99 years? So the psychology is simple. The more insecure the buyer, the more expensive the illusion must be. And Singapore, unlike any other country, has perfected the art of monetizing insecurity at luxury rates. Here's the dirty little secret nobody in Singapore says out loud, but everybody knows. Rich mainlanders are the punchline and the paycheck. They are the ones footing the bill for Singapore's miracle economy. And the locals? They're laughing all the way to the bank. Walk into any hawker centre and listen closely. You'll hear the grumbles about property prices being insane, HDB flats turning into shoeboxes, and COE certificates costing as much as kidneys on the black market. But then someone will smirk and say, don't worry, La, some PRC will pay. That's the national safety valve. When life in Singapore gets unaffordable, everyone remembers, the dumb rich will buy it anyway. Even the government is in on the joke. Policies aren't designed to help the average Singaporean buy a home. They're designed to make sure there's always a foreigner willing to pay double. And mainlanders are perfect. They don't haggle. They don't read fine print. They just wire the money and post the receipt on WeChat. Imagine a casino where one type of gambler always bets red, no matter what. Singapore built its entire real estate economy around that guy. And the best part? Singaporeans get to play both sides. In public, they roll their eyes at uncultured PRCs. They mock their fashion, their loud voices, their obsession with showing off. But in private, they cash the checks. Developers, bankers, agents, taxi drivers, everybody eats off the same buffet. Singaporeans may despise them socially, but economically, they are the goose-laying golden eggs, one overpriced shoebox at a time. The irony here is delicious. Mainland buyers think they're being respected, welcomed, treated as VIPs. In reality, they're being humoured, like clowns at a child's birthday party. Smile, take the photo, swipe the card, thank you, come again. And by the time they realise Singaporeans are laughing at them, it's too late. Their prestige condo is already losing value, their Ferrari's COE is expiring, and their membership at the country club has become just another line on a credit card bill. So yes, mainlanders arrive thinking they're kings, but leave realising they were always just the entertainment. Except, unlike clowns, they had to pay for the privilege of being laughed at. Both scams are messy. Nigerian princes, fake crypto coins, timeshares in Florida, they come and go, leaving chaos behind. But Singapore? Singapore industrialized the scam. They turned milking insecure millionaires into a national business model backed by clean contracts, glossy marketing, and government policy. It's not a side hustle, it's the economy. Start with housing. The 99-year lease trick isn't a loophole, it's the foundation. Singapore's entire property market runs on it. Developers don't even blush. They'll sell you a sky palace for $2 million and then happily remind you in fine print that your grandchildren will inherit nothing but dust. And here's the brilliance. Because everyone plays by the same scam, it doesn't feel like a scam. It feels like stability. Then add cars. The Certificate of Entitlement, COE, is the single greatest invention in the history of legalized robbery. You buy a car and then you buy permission to keep it, like paying rent on your own property. Mainland buyers treat it as prestige. Look, I paid $500,000 for this Ferrari. Singapore smirks. Thank you for funding our MRT upgrades. And don't forget education. Rich Chinese love buying prestige for their kids. Private schools in Singapore charge absurd tuition, not because the teaching is world class, but because the rich will pay anything to say, my child is in Singapore. The joke. The kid ends up speaking broken English mixed with Singlish, still can't order a burger in New York without panicking. But hey, the diploma looks shiny on WeChat. Even shopping is weaponized. Orchard Road is designed like a financial slaughterhouse. Louis Vuitton, Rolex, Chanel, everything priced higher than Hong Kong or Shanghai. But mainlanders line up like it's Disneyland. Why? Because in Singapore, the sales assistant calls them Sir, instead of glaring at them like in Paris. That's worth another 20% markup. The entire country works like a scammer's factory. The government supplies the rules, developers and retailers provide the glossy bait, and the victims walk in willingly, proud, smiling, and oblivious. No guns, no threats, no lies. Just a system so smooth that even the victims brag about being scammed. That's the Singapore miracle. Not hard work, not innovation, not Asian values. It's the genius of finding the world's easiest marks, packaging mediocrity as luxury and charging triple. And mainlanders. They're the VIP customers keeping the conveyor belt running. On the surface, Singapore is paradise. Clean streets, shiny buildings, efficient trains, and a skyline that looks like the future. It's the Instagram city of Asia, where everything glows under the right filter. But peel away the brochure, and what do you find? A velvet prison, designed not to lock people in, but to lock wallets open. For the rich mainlander, Singapore feels like heaven at first. No visa hassles, Mandarin everywhere, waiters who don't sneer at you, and endless opportunities to show off. But give it a year, and the cracks appear. That luxury condo you bought, still tiny, still leasehold, and already bleeding maintenance fees. That Ferrari you revved on Orchard Road, depreciating like a used tissue the moment your COE clock starts ticking. That elite membership you bragged about. Turns out it's just another overpriced room full of the same faces pretending to be global. And here's the cruel irony. Once you're inside the system, you can't easily leave. You can't resell your condo without losing money. You can't export your car without dumping value. And you can't admit to your friends back home that you got played. So you double down. You buy more prestige, you spend more on status, you tell yourself it's all worth it, while Singapore just keeps cashing your checks. Meanwhile, locals shake their heads. They know Singapore isn't paradise. It's a pressure cooker. But they also know mainlanders make it tolerable. Every overpriced coffee, every insane property value, every inflated certificate fee is softened by one truth. Someone dumber is paying more. So is Singapore paradise? Sure, if your definition of paradise is a place where you pay triple for everything, and the only thing you truly own is the illusion that you're respected. In reality, it's a luxury prison where the bars are made of designer brands and the guards wear smiles while swiping your credit card. And for rich but dumb Chinese, congratulations, you found your forever home. Not in heaven, not in hell, but in Singapore, the city where your wallet does life without parole. So here's the question for you, viewers. Is Singapore really the clever one for building this wallet prison? Or are the buyers even dumber for walking into it with smiles on their faces? Drop your thoughts below, because I know half of you will defend Singapore as smart nation, and the other half will call it Asia's luxury scam. Either way, the comment section is your battleground. So let's see who's brave enough to admit the truth. Because if there's one thing timeshares have proven, it's that the only thing more expensive than paradise is believing in it.